so this is something very particular because they had to cut the foundation, a very hard work, and realize this secret passage.
Beneath the Colosseum, under all the dust and broken stone, a secret chamber has turned up signs that Rome never wanted anyone to see. Strange images, forgotten symbols, and traces of old rituals hint at a story the empire tried hard to erase from its own past, raising questions about what really happened in those dark tunnels. If these symbols survived centuries underground, what else is still hiding down there? Join us as we find out what history has to say about the lost world under Rome. Shadows of a lost world. The city of Rome stands today as one of the most visited places on Earth. Its wide streets, ancient ruins, and layers of history draw people from all over the world. One of its most famous sites is the Colosseum. This great stone arena rises above the city, like a symbol of Rome's ancient power and spectacle. For nearly 2,000 years, visitors have walked its outer ring, seen its arches, and imagined the crowds that once filled its stands. That grand structure has become the image of ancient Rome in the minds of many. While millions see its upper corridors and the open arena, much more lies hidden below and around it. The area beneath and around the Colosseum holds more than the remains of the great amphitheater alone. It sits next to the ruins of an even older structure, the vast palace of one of Rome's most famous emperors. That palace, known today as the Domus Aurea, or Golden Palace, was built nearly 2,000 years ago by the Emperor Nero after a massive fire devastated much of the city. The palace was enormous and reached across several hills. Its grand halls, gardens, and artificial lakes covered a huge portion of ancient Rome. Parts of it were richly decorated with marble, gold, and elaborate art. Over time, later generations buried much of it beneath soil and new buildings. The Domus Aurea was lost to history for many centuries, until it was rediscovered accidentally during the Renaissance when a boy fell through the ground into its painted rooms. Since then, archaeologists have worked to uncover portions of this massive palace, and with each new season of digging, they find new evidence of Rome's layered past. Many of these remains are beneath the modern city and below the structures that replaced the palace over the centuries. This area, part of the archaeological park that also includes the Colosseum, holds some of the richest and most unexpected finds in modern archaeology. Among the most surprising of these finds is a secret underground chamber recently brought back to light after lying in darkness for almost 2 millennia. This chamber was discovered accidentally while archaeologists were restoring nearby sections of the palace ruins. Most of the room remained filled with dirt and hidden from view. But when workers set up bright lights and equipment, they uncovered an entire vaulted space covered in murals that have long been forgotten. The room is now called the Sphinx Room because one of the creatures painted on its walls is a sphinx, a mythological being with the body of a lion and the head of a woman. Surrounding this figure, in red, green, and yellow pigments that have survived the centuries, are images of other mythical beings and vibrant designs. Figures, such as centaurs, half-man and half-horse creatures, appear alongside depictions of the goat-rumped god Pan. There are also figures with motifs of plants, water ornaments, sea creatures, and battle scenes. This newly rediscovered space was long hidden under the layers of soil and debris that accumulated after Nero's passing. Following his demise in the 1st century AD, Nero fell out of favor with many in Rome. His successors took deliberate steps to erase his legacy. They filled parts of his vast palace with earth and built new public spaces and facilities over it. One of these later constructions was the Flavian Amphitheater, which would become known as the Colosseum. The land that once held Nero's artificial lake became the site for this new grand structure, changing the face of Rome forever. The palace itself, once a symbol of imperial extravagance, was hidden from sight, as subsequent emperors and builders used its foundations for new projects, leaving entire sections buried below the surface of the growing city. In time, the memories of these spaces faded, with only small portions of the palace visible above ground and recognized as part of ancient Roman history. Archaeologists describe the Sphinx Room and other hidden chambers beneath the city as valuable time capsules. These spaces have remained undisturbed for centuries, sealed away from air and light. In much of the Domus Aurea, These conditions help preserve the artwork that now emerges. The fresh colors of the pigments and the clarity of the animal and mythical figures testify to artistic skill and vibrant expression that once filled the palace halls. In its prime, the Domus Aurea contained hundreds of rooms decorated with frescoes, stuccos, and ornamental design. These artworks cover the vaulted ceiling and walls, suggesting a room where symbolism played a significant role in its design and purpose. The chamber adds to a growing body of evidence that much of this lost palace still waits to be fully explored. Its discovery shows that even in places that have been studied for generations, there are still new corners of the ancient world waiting to be found. The fact that this chamber remained hidden until recent years reflects the complexity of Rome's underground. Excavations in Rome are always careful and slow because modern buildings, roads, and utilities sit above ancient ruins. Archaeologists must balance preservation with exploration, making each new discovery both challenging and exciting. Each new find adds depth to our understanding of life, art, and power in ancient Rome, where many more spaces are yet to be uncovered. Domus Aurea. Inside the Colosseum. The Domus Aurea was the greatest palace ever built in ancient Rome. It stretched across vast hills in the center of the city. This palace was built by the Emperor Nero, soon after a great fire swept through Rome in 64 AD. The fire destroyed large parts of the city and left behind wide spaces of land. Nero seized this opportunity to build a palace that would be larger and more beautiful than anything ever seen before. The palace stood on the Esquiline, Palatine, and Caelian hills, covering areas that today are the foundations of later Roman buildings. The name Domus Aurea was given to this place because the palace once gleamed with gold leaf on its walls, semi-precious stones, and rich decoration. In Nero's time, this palace was a symbol of wealth and power, and it seemed to show that the emperor could command not just the city above ground, but the world of architecture and art as well. Over time, however, the palace passed from being the center of power to a forgotten secret hidden under layers of soil and later construction. The Domus Aurea stood for only a few years before Nero's life ended in 68 AD. After his demise, Roman leaders acted quickly to remove his influence from the city. Nero had become unpopular among many citizens and senators because of the great costs of his projects and his reputation for excess and cruelty. As a result, his successors stripped the palace of its luxurious materials. Marble, ivory, and metal fittings were taken away and used in new public buildings. Most parts of the palace were buried on purpose, with soil and rubble heaped on them, so that new structures like Trajan's public baths would stand solidly on the ground above. This burial helped to preserve the lower levels of the palace, but it also meant that much of the Domus Aurea was forgotten and lost to memory for centuries. Only small portions were ever seen above ground, while most of the palace remained invisible beneath Rome's streets and parks. Many centuries later, in the 15th century, the Domus Aurea was rediscovered by accident when a young boy fell through a hole in the ground into one of the buried chambers. Renaissance artists and scholars then began to explore this strange underground world. They found painted walls and ceilings that had been protected from the air for nearly 1,500 years. These early explorers included some of the most famous artists of the time. They copied the designs and brought them into the art world again, stirring a renewed interest in classical design. For many years after this rediscovery, parts of the Domus Aurea were studied, but the full extent of its underground spaces remained hidden. Archaeologists have only gradually revealed more of its rooms and corridors as restoration work continues in the modern era. Today, the Domus Aurea is part of the archaeological area near the Colosseum, where visitors can walk through sections of this ancient palace and see traces of its decoration and design. In recent years, the Sphinx Room has captured public attention and scientific interest. Archaeologists discovered the entrance while they were preparing to restore the vaulted ceiling of a neighboring space. As they worked, they exposed the top of a previously unseen barrel-vaulted room. When lights were directed into this space for the first time in nearly 2,000 years, the entire surface of its painted vault and upper walls became visible. The chamber is rectangular in shape with a tall curved ceiling, and it sits beneath the ancient hill in the area known as Oppian Hill. not far from the Colosseum itself. The work on the room has been attributed to a group of painters known to historians as the Workshop, active in Rome between AD 65 and 68. Their style and technique match other rooms in the palace, including the connected underground corridors. The choice of figures and the vibrancy of the colors suggest that these chambers were intended to be luxurious spaces that celebrated myth, nature, and the artistic imagination of the time. The secrets of Rome's underground world. The Great Colosseum in Rome is one of the most famous ancient buildings in the world. In the time of the Roman Empire, it stood as the center of public spectacle, where gladiators, wild animals, and staged battles drew huge crowds. Today, most people know about the open arena, the massive outer walls, and the view from the seats where emperors and citizens once applauded violence for sport. What many people do not realize is that the Colosseum is not just a single monument rising above ground. Hidden beneath its sunlit arena lies a vast network of passages, tunnels, chambers, and corridors that tell a story of ingenuity, organization, and ancient engineering. For modern explorers and archaeologists, these hidden underground spaces are as fascinating as the stone amphitheater above, and they reveal a side of Roman spectacle that has been invisible to the world for many decades. The underground network beneath the Colosseum is known as the hypogeum, which comes from a Greek word meaning underground. This complex system was a hidden world where animals waited in cages, gladiators prepared for combat, and stage machinery was operated in silence before dramatic appearances were made above. The hypogeum consisted of two main levels of corridors, galleries, and holding cells that stretched across the length of the amphitheater. These passages were connected to trapdoors and vertical shafts that opened directly into the arena floor, creating a dramatic effect during public shows when animals, fighters, or props suddenly appeared as if by magic. The design of the hypogeum was a remarkable engineering achievement. The Romans built wooden elevators, pulley systems, and counterweights that could lift cages of animals and even scenery from the dark chambers below to the surface. Some shafts were connected to winches operated by teams of workers who pushed and pulled to raise these cages through trapdoors. In its full function, this underground system allowed the organizers of the games to manage dozens of animals, props, and fighters in precise coordination. The chambers of the hypogeum also included spaces for preparing gladiators before they stepped into the spotlight. These participants waited in narrow corridors, sometimes chained or kept in small rooms, ready to enter the arena at the appointed time. Some passages linked the hypogeum to other nearby structures, such as the Ludus Magnus, the largest gladiator training school in Rome. This school stood close to the amphitheater and featured a direct tunnel that would bring fighters into the heart of the games without exposing them to the crowds until the moment of combat. This connection between training grounds, waiting chambers, and the arena shows that the Colosseum was not a standalone structure, but part of a larger architectural and social system that supported the spectacle of ancient Roman life. For centuries after the fall of the Roman Empire, much of the hypogeum was forgotten and buried under layers of earth, debris, and later building remains. The wooden floor of the arena was removed in the medieval period, exposing parts of the underground to the open air. But many corridors and rooms remained unseen. Archaeologists began serious study of the underground levels in the late 19th century, uncovering the intricate stonework, passages, and machinery that had been hidden beneath time and soil. In the modern era, restoration and excavation work has revealed more of these underground spaces, transforming what was once the dark backstage of ancient games into a place where visitors can walk and explore history firsthand. Today, visitors to the Colosseum can join guided tours that lead them into the hypogeum, where the atmosphere is cooler and darker than the arena above. Walking through the tunnels, one sees the original stone corridors and the remains of the mechanisms that once powered the elevators and trapdoors. In recent years, parts of the hidden underground world have been opened more widely to the public. Beyond the hypogeum itself, new discoveries and restorations have revealed imperial passageways, such as the corridor once used by Roman emperors to enter the arena unseen. This passage, known as the Commodus Passage, was used by rulers to move discreetly beneath the Colosseum and take their seats without crossing the public spaces. Archaeologists have restored sections of this corridor and uncovered decorative elements that hint at the importance of the route to elite visitors of the Games. The experience of moving through these spaces gives a sense of the intense preparation and organization that took place out of sight of the cheering crowds. The opening of this passage to the public is a new chapter in the story of Rome's hidden layers, expanding what we can see and understand about how the ancient world operated behind closed doors. The survival and rediscovery of these underground networks remind us that Rome's history is not only written in the ruins we see above ground. It is also carved into the stone beneath the surface, hidden in passages and chambers that were once the heart of ancient spectacle and now lie silent beneath modern life. These hidden spaces connect us with the reality of people who lived, worked, and fought here so many centuries ago, and they bring us closer to understanding the full scale of Rome's legacy beneath its famous stones. The ritual symbols and their meaning. The hidden chambers beneath ancient Roman sites like the Domus Aurea reveal a world filled with images and symbols that once carried deep meaning for people of that time. When archaeologists uncovered the so-called Sphinx Room beneath Nero's Golden House, they found walls and ceilings alive with colorful frescoes. The imagery is both decorative and symbolic, reflecting the beliefs, stories, and artistic language of the ancient Mediterranean world. The presence of mythical figures suggests their purpose went beyond simple decorations. The Romans and their Greek predecessors believed that mythological symbols could communicate ideas about nature, the divine, and human life. To understand why these images appeared in elite spaces like the Domus Aurea, we need to look at what these figures represented in Roman and Greek mythological traditions, and how their visual language was used in ancient art and architecture. One of the most striking figures in the Sphinx Room is the Sphinx, a creature with the body of a lion and the head of a human. The Sphinx comes from older Greek and Egyptian traditions and carried complex meanings for peoples across the Mediterranean world. In Greek myth, the Sphinx is a guardian of thresholds and mysteries, testing those who approach with puzzles and riddles. The image of the Sphinx often represented the challenge of overcoming danger through intelligence and courage. In Egyptian tradition, similar creatures were seen as protectors of important places and were connected to divine power and strength. Because the Romans absorbed many Greek symbols into their own art, the Sphinx in the Domus Aurea may have served as a symbol of mystery, power, and protection at the edges of the known world of human experience. Its presence in a richly decorated room framed by vegetal motifs and geometric bands suggests that it was chosen not just for beauty, but to invoke wisdom, strength, and the unseen forces behind daily life. Centaurs are another prominent motif in this hidden chamber. These are creatures with the upper body of a human and the lower body of a horse. In Greek and later Roman contexts, centaurs were often used to represent the tension between civilized life and untamed nature. Their dual form, both human and animal, reminded ancient viewers of the balance between reason and instinct. Some centaurs were shown as wild and chaotic, symbolizing rebellious forces outside the order of society. Others were depicted in different myths as wise teachers or guides to heroes, showing that these figures could embody both danger and potential. In the artistic language of the Domus Aurea, centaurs likely carried these layered meanings of wild nature and controlled power. Their placement within the decorative program of the room might have been intended to reflect the complexity of life itself, where humans must learn to navigate both rational thought and primal instinct. Figures of Pan also appear on the frescoes in the chamber. Pan, a goat-legged god associated with forests, shepherds, and wild places, was a familiar figure in Greek and Roman art. As a symbol, Pan represented the natural world, music, fertility, and the joy and fear that came from life beyond the boundaries of towns and cities. His presence in art often suggested a connection to the rhythms of nature and the vitality of life outside urban order. In Roman homes and banqueting rooms, images of Pan and related woodland spirits could evoke the pleasures of rural life and a sense of connection between the elite inhabitants and the forces of nature that sustained agriculture and prosperity. The depiction of Pan among other creatures in the frescoes may have expressed a harmonious blend of human life with the wider world of spirit, nature, and celebration. Beyond mythological beings, the frescoed walls of chambers show aquatic creatures, birds, plants, and stylized vegetal garlands. These elements were common in Roman wall painting and often had symbolic value. Plants and birds could represent growth, fertility, and renewal, tying the imagery inside a room to the cycles of life and the rhythms of nature outside. Water creatures, whether real fish or imaginative hybrids, connected the space visually to the idea of fluidity, abundance, and life's flow. In the Roman Empire, myth and symbolism were a central part of how people made sense of their world. Gods, heroes, and mythological beasts were not distant fairy tales. They were woven into the fabric of everyday life through art, religion, and entertainment. Instead of random decoration, every motif was part of a broader visual language. Temples, homes, and official buildings used imagery borrowed from Greek myths because these stories carried shared meanings everyone in the educated world understood. Romans believed that symbols could carry power and meaning beyond words, connecting human life to forces believed to act behind the scenes. Frescoes in elite residences like the Domus Aurea were part of this visual dialogue. The careful use of colors and geometric framing bands helped organize these images into a visual narrative that would enfold a visitor. They were designed not just to impress with wealth and artistic skill, but to surround inhabitants and guests with reminders of forces that governed both human emotions and the natural world. Even if such chambers were private or used for banquets rather than formal religious ceremonies, the imagery would still carry associations with how humans related to unseen powers and the mysteries of life. This visual language connected artistic form to ideas that were central to Roman cultural and spiritual life, allowing spaces to become more than rooms, but expressions of a worldview shaped by myth and symbol. Taken together, the mythological symbols in the frescoes beneath the Domus Aurea show that ancient Roman art was not only decorative, it was a form of communication that bridged the human world with the supernatural. These images served as visual signposts, inviting viewers to reflect on the ancient stories behind them and to feel connected to a tradition that made sense of life through shared symbols. The secret cults beneath Rome. Ancient Rome was a city filled with many gods, rituals, and ways of worship that went far beyond what we see in its great temples. While Romans honored gods like Jupiter and Mars in public processions and official ceremonies, many other religious groups worshipped in secret or in private spaces. These groups are often called mystery cults or secret religions because they practiced rites that were not made public and often took place in hidden or underground places. These underground rites and cults shaped the spiritual life of Rome in ways that official religion could not. They connected people with new ideas about life, death, salvation, initiation, and personal transformation. Some of the most famous of these cults included the worship of Mithras, the cult of Isis from Egypt, and others that offered deeper experiences to those who joined them. These cults operated beside public Roman religion and helped shape the identity of people who lived in the city and throughout the empire. The cult of Mithras was one of the most widespread secret religions in ancient Rome. It began to spread across the empire by the 1st century AD and became especially popular among Roman soldiers, merchants, and imperial officials. Unlike the open worship of Jupiter on public altars, the followers of Mithras gathered in small, enclosed rooms called Mithraea that were often built underground or made to look like caves. These spaces were designed to resemble the mythic cave where the god Mithras was believed to have slain a bull, a scene known as the Tauroctony. This image was central to the cult's teachings and appears in nearly every Mithraeum uncovered by archaeologists. These secret temples were not large structures, but narrow, low spaces where only a small group could meet at a time. Each Mithraeum had benches on the sides where initiates would recline during communal meals. The atmosphere inside was dark, symbolic, and meant to signify the hidden world of spiritual mystery beneath everyday life. Initiation into the cult of Mithras was a serious process that involved multiple stages. Members advanced through a series of ranks, often symbolically connected with stars and planets, as they gained deeper knowledge and experience within the cult. These stages included symbolic purification, ritual meals, oaths of secrecy, and dramatic rites that symbolized the soul's journey and renewal. Because the cult left no written scriptures, scholars today rely on the design of the Mithraea, ritual objects, inscriptions, and art to piece together what these rituals might have meant. The secrecy of the rites meant that only initiates fully understood their significance, and members formed a close brotherhood connected by shared belief and ritual. This emphasis on hidden knowledge, initiation, and spiritual mystery made Mithraism unlike most other forms of Roman religion, which were either public or communal in nature. Another set of cults that operated partly in secret were those associated with foreign deities, especially Isis from Egypt. The cult of Isis was imported into Italy long before the empire reached its greatest size, and it spread through cities and ports, connected to trade and movement of people. Although Isis had public temples and festivals, the deeper rituals of her cult included secret rites of initiation, purification, and symbolic rebirth. These rites drew both men and women, and the cult offered personal promises of protection, care for life's struggles, and hope for a future existence after death. Devotees of Isis were not restricted to a single class or group, and her cult appealed especially to those who felt overlooked by traditional public religion. In Pompeii, a well-preserved temple of Isis shows that even when Roman authorities once tried to suppress her worship, the faith grew and re-established itself, showing how powerful and meaningful these alternative religious communities became to ordinary people. Mystery religions, including those devoted to Isis and Mithras, appealed to people because they offered a personal religious experience compared with public cults. Public Roman religion focused on ceremonies that preserved the favor of the gods for the state as a whole. Participation in these rituals brought blessings on the city, its armies, and its rulers. In contrast, secret cults offered something more personal. They invited individuals to participate in rites that promised not just favor in this life, but transformation, belonging, and a sense of connection with the unseen world. Members of these cults might experience symbolic death and rebirth, rituals of purification, or feasts that symbolized cosmic unity and renewal. Because the rites were closed to outsiders and limited to initiates, they created deep bonds among members and gave them a spiritual world that lay just beyond the visible one that most Romans knew. These underground and secret rites also show how Rome's religious life was diverse and adaptable. Romans did not demand that worshippers choose between official state religion and private paths to salvation. Instead, many people joined multiple cults and practiced different rites at different times. A soldier might take part in Mithraic mysteries underground, visit the temple of Isis for comfort and healing, and still pay respect to Jupiter or Mars in public festivals. Women, freedmen, and slaves found different cults that spoke to their needs and offered spiritual solace. Slaves and lower-class people might pray to Isis for protection, while soldiers sought strength and brotherhood with Mithras. This flexibility helped integrate many foreign traditions into the Roman world and made underground cults a vibrant part of urban and provincial life. Because these cults met in private or hidden spaces, their material remains were often buried or forgotten when Rome changed. Some Mithraea were later built over by Christian churches in the later empire, showing how religious life shifted over centuries. Only through archaeology have many of these places been uncovered, revealing carved reliefs, altars, symbolic scenes, and objects used in rituals. These finds show that Rome's hidden religious world was once active, meaningful, and shaped the lives of countless people. These forgotten cults of Rome remind us that the official temples and grand public spaces were only part of Roman spiritual life. Today, archaeologists and historians continue to uncover and study these spaces. Every fragment of the underground temple adds to our understanding of how ancient people saw themselves and their world. These hidden practices reveal a side of Rome that was deeply personal, richly symbolic, and spiritually complex, showing that Rome's ancient identity was built as much beneath the surface as above it. What other secrets do you think could be hiding beneath the ruins of ancient Rome? Let us know your views in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe to this channel. Before you go, watch the other videos on your screen.